So Washington took himself as commander-in-chief of the army, Article II power, along with Alexander Hamilton, me too boss, central power please, off on his horse, and they rode out with 12,900 soldiers to western Pennsylvania, where these farmers who weren't going to follow the government, they decided to pay up and shut up when the commander-in-chief showed up on his horse. What this meant was the central government could enforce power. The Constitution was actually going to work. The people would listen if the president said, you have to do something. If he couldn't enforce the law, the Constitution was a loss. So Washington took a strong turn and got proof that the government would work. And that's it, from some guy in a Hawaiian shirt. This is Unit 3, Week 1, question number 5, Jay's Treaty and Pinckney's Treaty. Prime number, another duck, this one's in a raincoat. Anyways, what is Jay's Treaty? Jay's Treaty was a treaty with the British. After the American Revolution, we were an independent country. We could do everything that was independent, except the British weren't letting us do anything that they signed in the Treaty of Paris ending the American Revolution. They were setting up forts on our frontier. They weren't letting us trade in the Caribbean. They weren't letting us trade in Asia. They were kind of treating us as kind of a wimpy little nation, which we, well, were. So Jay went and signed a treaty that actually gave us fewer rights than we supposedly already had after the American Revolution. Therefore, this treaty was immensely unpopular. Why did Washington agree to it? The Senate ratify it? Why did they put their tail between their legs and cower away? Because they didn't want to confront Britain as an independent country. They didn't want to go to war with Britain again. So Jay's treaty was, okay, Britain will let us do a lot of these things. They'll take their forts away. They still wouldn't let us trade in the Caribbean. They were limiting us a little bit, but we agreed to fewer rights than we already had to avoid war. The good news about this treaty, however, was Pinckney's Treaty. Pinckney's Treaty was a treaty between the United States and Spain. And Spain looked at the Jay's Treaty. Who would sign a treaty like the Americans? Who would be dumb enough to agree to fewer rights than they already have? There must be a secret clause. They thought there was something between the British and the Americans. Because of that, they helped resolve the dispute as to where the boundary was with Spain. Spain being in Florida, and the rest of the American colonies are now the American nation north of that. And we wanted to trade up and down the Mississippi River. Well, actually just down the river, because steam power wouldn't let you go back up it yet. But Spain controlled the Mississippi, the port of New Orleans. Spain gave us the right of deposit, which meant we could leave our goods that we were trading in New Orleans. We could use the Mississippi River. And they established a clear boundary with Florida. Why? All because they were afraid of our treaty with Britain, so they wanted to get a clarifying thing that would benefit them. And that's it from some guy in a Hawaiian shirt about why the British gave us fewer rights and we said okay, and why the Spanish gave us more rights and said you could use the Mississippi River. That's it. This is Unit 3, Week 1, question number 6. What were the origin or start of the first two political parties? Basically, they were personality cults around two of the national leaders. Washington said, I'm above party. He didn't even run against someone for president. Would you run against George Washington? Of course not. But after he left office, people started gathering their philosophies around two men who were both in Washington's cabinet. Thomas Jefferson was the founder of what would become the Democratic Republican Party. Nothing to do with the Democrats today or the Republicans, but a party named Democratic-Republican. They were a party of strict construction, not many constitutional national powers, power to the states, power to the farmers, power to the local areas, minimal national government. The others were the Federalists. Under Alexander Hamilton, they wanted strong national power. The economy run from the center in the new national government in Washington, D.C. Loose construction of the Constitution. If it said Congress could do this, and it was and they could say it was necessary and proper, then they could do it. They wanted to expand the role of the national government, expand the economic centralization of the United States. And Washington was really a Federalist, but he didn't say it. Most of his decisions were more Federalist-like. From these two guys and the antagonism between them became the are the beginnings of the two parties in the United States. And that's it from some guy in a Hawaiian shirt. There have always been two parties. Neither of these two are around today, but the concept that there's always been two ones fighting to get just enough votes to hopefully get what they want in Congress came out of these two. And that's it. This is Unit 3, Week 1, question number 7. The election of 1796. Prime number, medical duck, nurse duck, I don't know. 1796 election, who are the candidates? Essentially, Washington set the precedent. He stepped down after 2 terms. There wasn't the 22nd Amendment limiting the president to 2 terms yet. So Washington steps down. Who's going to succeed him? Well, the folks supporting Hamilton, the Federalists, strong bankers, national power, national economy, and the Democratic Republicans under Jefferson who want a weak, decentralized government are fighting. The candidates are John Adams from the Federalists from New Hampshire and Thomas Jefferson for the Democratic Republicans. Hamilton doesn't run because he's kind of an unpopular guy. He's kind of the guy behind the scenes controlling it. Anyways, when they meet in the Electoral College, Hamilton really doesn't like Adams very much, even though he's from his party. So Hamilton told all of the electors in the Electoral College, vote for Pinckney, Thomas Pinckney, vote for the vice presidential guy instead of Adams. But what happened when they counted, some of the Federalists were so angry, they voted for Jefferson in protest. So what happened was you ended up with Adams winning the presidency, and because the person was second place before the 12th Amendment was vice president, you ended up with Jefferson as vice president. So Hamilton messed with the system, ended up with the guy back at vice president from the party he didn't even like. Partly as a result of that, they're going to pass the 12th Amendment. Anyways, that's it on the election of 1796. Hamilton is trying to mess with the system. It's one of the last, if not last, Federalist presidents. Because once people without property can vote, the party of the rich, the national power, they're toast. And that's it from some guy in a Hawaiian shirt.